Okay, so this is a live demo with all of the caveats that should entail. If everything goes at least, 80% well, then this will go up on the documentation page as exporter training video that we can refer back to in the future. If it's a massive disaster, then I will just go back and record one, not live and on the spot, and that'll be the training up on the permanent page, but we'll see. Just a few notes. This is going to focus mostly on the new exporter feature, which has been built out in the most recent import export work. There have also been several changes to the importer, which makes it, I would estimate, 10% more complicated to use, but about 100% more effective and useful. It can do a lot of things now that it couldn't do previously. I think that those changes are all reflected in documentation. We still need to update video trainings on those, which I will do. But some of the big takeaways on importer changes is all work types in importer can now share a common CSV. So you don't have to have or I should probably go ahead and share for this, even though I'm going to go through it quite quickly. So previously, when you were going through the importer, when you were creating it, you would have to choose your parser, and you would have, you had, I think, 6 different options, some of which actually did not function in our system. So we've isolated that to the 2 that actually are functional. All of the other ones have been eliminated. And previously, you had a CSV plain, a CSV called OER, and a CSV for ETD. And you would use the regular one for either generic works or images, and then the other 2 for their dedicated work types. Now those can all use the same CSV, just indicate in the CSV field itself, in the model field, which model you're working with. So if you are importing a generic work, you can import it right along with an ETD and just indicate it by the model, and use whichever metadata fields are required and that optionally you want to use for each of those, and leave the other ones blank. Obviously, if you indicate that something is a generic work and try to use a metadata field that only exists for ETD, then the importer is just going to skip that, and that metadata won't carry through at all. So if you would like to continue using the import template specific to each work type, we're going to keep those up, and I'll just add a universal importer CSV template that has every possible field. And you can see the, this doesn't have it, but you can see the vocabularies in there will now include the vocabularies will now include, these are the specific phrasing for each model. And so a second update is that in addition to the 4 work types, you can now import a collection as a work type. And you can include a file set as a work type. A file set is not a work, it's a set of files that you attach to a work, which can be done through the use of the parents and then also child fields in the template. That's all in the documentation now. So those collections and file sets are new models. Also, now in bulk racks, you can import works without files. So if you don't want to use a generic PDF placeholder or something like that for a work that you have metadata on, but the work itself is either located elsewhere, or it's something that you're not uploading to the system directly. If you go through the importer, you can just include metadata, just don't include anything in the items field, and it'll create a work without metadata or without a file attached to it. You cannot do that through the manual uploader. If you're manually uploading a work through the share your work button or add new work, then you're required to attach a file, which you're free afterward to delete later, or like I said, to use a placeholder PDF or something like that in the place of it. But if you just don't want a file attached, then going through the importer is a way to do that. And we've configured it that way on purpose so that you have the option, if it's really important to you, to have empty metadata profiles for works, but you don't want a file attached. You can do it through the importer, but that's not basic functionality through standard upload. And then finally, not a huge deal, but you can now zip all of your files directly with the CSV, all at the same level of hierarchy, rather than zipping together one CSV and one folder called files with all of the files in it. It'll still work that way, the traditional way, but you're not required to do that. So those are 4 kind of big changes to how the importer works. But now additionally, we have exporter functionality with some degree of round tripping support for exporting and then importing into either another tenant, or exporting, changing metadata in bulk, re-importing into your system, whatever you want to do with that. And so the exporter is located it's on your dashboard under repository contents, exporters, and that'll take you to this dashboard. And you can see there's a little bit of configuration in terms of how it's displayed. You can sort by name, sort by status. You can see I have one from a little while ago that's in that infinite pending loop from a test I did. So if you want all of your pending ones to come to the top, you can sort by status. The most useful one probably is sort by date, reverse sort, because you want your most recent ones probably to be the ones that you see first. And then you have your downloadable files. These, of course, only display once the export has run. Until it's run, this will just be an empty field. I'll show you that here in a second. But if your export is more than 1,000 lines on the CSV, then it will be broken into multiple zip files. And so this drop-down menu will allow you to download the first, second, third, fourth, etc., as many as you need to. And I specify more than 1,000 lines on the CSV because it's not just if you have more than 1,000 files in the export that you're doing, or even more than 1,000 works, but there are a lot of other types of information that might take up a line in the CSV that would be exported. So even something that seems like a smaller one, like say you're exporting a collection of 600 works, some of those have multiple files attached, some of them only have one, and you export that, that still might get broken into multiple zip downloads because, for instance, file sets are getting listed separately from the work that they are part of, collections are getting listed separately, and so on. And that extends more into some of the options that I will show you now. So to create an export job, click the new button up here. So you want to create a new exporter. You have to give it some sort of name. So we'll just call this demo. Your type of export, you have 2 options. You can either export only your metadata or the metadata and the files themselves. So if you're exporting just to adjust metadata, you can do a metadata only export. It'll only spit out a CSV. Then you can make your modifications, re-import that, and that will make bulk changes to the works that are associated with whatever you export. Or you can get the files out as well if you're trying to export to migrate to another system, for example. You can then choose where you're exporting from. You can export from a specific importer, and notice that the options under that will change based on which of these you select. So initially, it doesn't give you the more detailed options, but if you select importer, then it'll ask, well, which importer do you want? And so you can export everything from a specific import job that you have done. You can also export from a specific collection, like other string searches in Hyku. It says 2 or more characters, but actually it will do word matching. So if you just do 2 letters it's going to say it doesn't find anything. You need to get at least a word in there. And then it'll give you a drop down that you can select. You can also export a specific work type. So if you want all of your generic works, all of your OERs, then you can export all of those, or you can export the entire repository. Primarily, that would be intended for, say, migrating to another Hyku tenant or another, or a similar Hyku system, but hosted elsewhere, or even to migrate that into a completely different system. And that'll spit out, in this case, because we've selected metadata and files, that'll spit out every file that we've uploaded, and then a registry of those files with all of the metadata. And of course, just like with importing, but maybe more usefully, we have the option to limit how many items we're getting. This can introduce a lot of complications because the limit is going to apply not just to how many works you're getting, but to how many lines that generates on the CSV. So, and because collection is a work type, if I export only the first 5 works from this collection, which I might do, I mean, I'm tempted to do it right now just to make it a faster export job for the sake of the demo. But if I do that, then it's going to spit out, and in fact, I have it here. It's going to spit out those 5 works. It's going to have a parents field. That parents field is telling the system what collection it's part of, but it didn't export the collection itself because I imposed that limitation of only 5. If I had exported the entire thing, then in addition to these 5 generic works that come in the export, you would also get possibly file sets. And if I had included, generated metadata and thumbnails, then you would get even, thumbnails would be an entire replication of everything. You get all of those thumbnails and then attached to the works that they're part of. But also those collections. And so then this CSV would have everything you need to reconstruct both the collections or the works and the collections that they're part of, or even sub-collections, if that's the case, that they're part of. But because I limited it, it does not do that. So that's something to be aware of if you're imposing limits on your export. And like I said, now any CSV larger than 1,000 lines gets automatically broken into a separate download. So you shouldn't have to worry about exports that are simply too large for a system to process, because it breaks it up automatically. So for I think most functional purposes, you'll want to avoid setting a limit. We have options to include generated metadata. Those are fields that you didn't create metadata for, but the system did, such as the last time or when the work was deposited, the last time that the work was edited, and so on. If you want that metadata to make adjustments with, or because you're going into another system from the back end, then you can include that. But note the notice here that these exported fields cannot currently be imported through the importer. So if you're doing an export to come back into Hyku through the importer function, you're not going to want to use that. And the include thumbnails, I think at this point is really forward thinking. There are cases where you create custom thumbnails that are separate from the thumbnail that would be generated by the system. And so say, 5 years from now, you want to move out of Hyku into a completely different system, but you want to maintain those thumbnails and not let the other system impose whatever it does onto those. So this is kind of thinking forward. At this point, I'm not aware of use cases that would really require it. And also, this is a field that cannot be imported. Finally, you can filter by date. So if you only want works that have been entered in the last 6 months or only ones older than 6 months ago or whatever, you can do that, but be aware that that may come with the same kinds of cutoffs that you get with the arbitrary limit. Finally, you can choose to only export by a certain visibility. So if you only want private works to come out, you can do that to say, do an audit of, well, what are the private works that we have in the system? Do we really want all these here? You can export the CSV and take a look at those. You can do them by mediated deposit status, whether it's pending a review, if it's ones with changes required. Again, this might be one, you know, if works have fallen through the cracks, you had student workers contributing works, and now they've graduated and they didn't do final approval on some of the works you sent back. You can get those works out and into a single CSV, take a look at them, and then handle those. And then finally, export format matches the two items that we looked at with import format. And you can either get that all out in a CSV, which is how we're used to doing imports. You'll get all of your files and then a single CSV that has the metadata for those files, along with metadata for other elements like collections. Or we can do Baggett. And I will show you real quickly what a Baggett export looks like. So this is a Baggett export from a large collection. And you can see everything has an automatically every file folder has an automatically generated name generated by the system. And if you get in there, it has its own metadata in a CSV format, but this metadata is specific to, okay, this is it. This metadata is specific to this folder, not to the entire export. Each one has its own folder, and some of these will be folders specific to a work. Some of them will be to a file set or a collection. But what this does is, in addition to exporting the work and the metadata, it runs checks on every file that's being exported and checks those against the original checksum to ensure that there's no data loss or any corruption of the files. So if you're working with you know, cross-integrating this with a preservation system somehow, something like that. Or if you want to get works out in order to put them into a preservation system, like that seems like an odd workflow, but you know, this gives you that option. And then again, as long as you're not including your generated metadata, including thumbnails, then you can just straight around round trip that and go to import by Baggett, import the same thing that you just exported that is currently supported. So if I were going to export this, I would get this collection, all of the metadata and files. I would export it, and then it would go to the dashboard. Well, let's go ahead and run this just so that we can see. Here is the one I just created, demo, the date exported, and currently no options to download, and it has a pending status. Click on it, and you can see at the moment we're only seeing this one work. It has an entry ID, it has a pending status. Possibly if I refresh, now we've got a couple have run through, the third one's pending. And so this is going to take a while because I exported 119 works. It's running through Baggett, so it's running checksums on that. This system is interacting with the bulk racks software. And so what this dashboard is showing you or showing us is only what the bulk racks system is communicating back to this. So it's not always 100% live in terms of what it's telling you. But once we go back to the dashboard, we would wait, and here in, I don't know, 15-ish minutes, maybe less than that. It's only 119 works, so possibly 5 or 10 minutes. If we had time to sit and wait, we would have this option here. Probably it'll just be one downloadable file. Click the download button and you'll get that. But just for demo's sake, I did earlier export 5 works from a collection in my university's tenant. And I want to show you, if we go to the importer, this is a brand new repository that I spun up just for this demo. So we'll create a new importer. And again, we only have these two options. The one I just ran that's in processing right now, I used the baguette parser, but the one I ran earlier that I'm uploading, I used CSV, not making any changes here. I will select that zip folder from and because I'm brave, I'm not going to validate. I'm just going to create and import and give this 10 or 15 seconds to process, and it'll create this as an import job. And because it's only 5 works, I think we'll have time to see some of the results of the import. But what I imported, I can show you, is exactly what was fed to me by the exporter. So this is export job 17-48-1. Okay, so the importer has been created. It has been queued. You can see that it's pending. Click on it. Oh my gosh, how did an export that came directly out of the system fail every single work that's coming in? One of the improvements that we got through the import export work is better reporting on the dashboard. It's still not flawless. Occasionally you'll get things that are pending and you just can't figure out why. We're working on that, but a lot of the errors that previously you just had no information to go on, a lot of those now have good reporting. So if we click on this, we'll see it's a standard error, but what does that mean? Click this errors drop down, and it'll actually tell us this Creative Commons license is not valid. And why is it not valid? Because when these works were uploaded to the system, back in, I don't know, first quarter of 2020, we were still on the 3.0 license. Since then, we've updated, and that's a hard-coded vocabulary in the system, so it just can't import those. So it told me what the error is, but thankfully, make sure I'm uploading to the right place. That's an easy thing to correct. So what I'll do, or what I have done, is take that CSV, put it into a editable spreadsheet, changed the license on that to 4.0, re-exported it, or re-downloaded this spreadsheet as a CSV, combined it with the files. And so it's a complete demo, or it's a complete import. I don't need to do anything with it now. I can leave this here as a record of my failure. I can delete it. But instead, I'm going to create a new importer. CSV. And this time I am uploading the edited. And so the only change I made in that is updating that license line. And again, we'll give it 10 or 15 seconds, but it should create a new importer, and without taking too much time, it should process those 5 PDFs as generic works and add them to the system. So here you can see that instantly it's pending. I'll refresh the page and look at that. It's complete. The works themselves are still pending. But one refresh, they are now complete. I can click on the work, click on the link to the work. And now the work itself is showing up in the system. You can see my metadata is here. It is not in a collection because I limited it to 5 items, and those items are only the works. So even though there is a field in the CSV that tells it what collection, that collection doesn't exist in this repository. And so it's just, that's a disregarded line by the import. We'll see what our speed is like for processing, but it is processing. You can see the file is attached. It's processing that file. And so here in, probably 45 seconds, a minute, maybe less than that, but it should render a thumbnail that's displayed here. And once we have an embedded PDF viewer, that would be reflected in this as well, or if I had uploaded an image. But so that's how you can export works from a collection, manipulate the edit metadata if you need to, and then export it either into a new tenant or a tenant elsewhere, or make changes to that work in the same repository that it came out of. That's kind of the process. One final thing to note is in this export, you can see it broke out all of my fields based on how many terms were in that field. So instead of just a general contributor field with items separated by a pipe, it broke those out into contributor _1, 2, 3, etc. And it'll generate as many of those as you have. So if you have 200 keywords, which I know some of our works and collections do, then it's going to have keyword _ all the way through 200. And for most works, those will be blank. The blank fields are disregarded. If you want to, you can recombine those into a single contributor field separated by a pipe, or you can leave it like this. And if you're wondering if in a general import now, you can create these additional columns rather than separate by pipe, you can. It's fine. And if in fact the system can do both at once. So if I had a general contributor field with 5 individuals in it separated by pipe, and then I also had _1, _2, each of those filled, those will all get added to the metadata of that work as separate contributors. So that's a thing to know about the way that the metadata gets structured. But now we have export, you can get your works and metadata out of the system. So yeah, if we have any questions, we have 3 minutes and I'm happy to answer them.
It was just really interesting how you were able to use the round trip functionality to identify data that didn't conform to, kind of controlled data that was supposed to be in a field. That was kind of got me thinking about, ways to, there's probably more efficient ways to clean up your data, but it's nice to know that that exists. If you are thinking about migrating, that's a good opportunity for the system itself to tell you when your data doesn't conform. It's just more.
And of course, you could use the validate feature to do that without risking adding or modifying works in the process, right? But
thank you. I was gonna ask, what does that validate button do? So now I remember. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. We will keep you updated on the upgrade process. And if you have any questions about import or any of the changes to it, like I said, some of the written documentation has been updated, and we're going to work on getting those video guides updated as well. But definitely, if you have any questions, reach out directly to me through Basecamp or email, and I will do my best to help you with all of your import woes. Other than that, have a good weekend. We'll see you guys. See you all next month.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.